Welcome to Formula World. I'm your host Dylan Shelley, and here's what's on this episode. First up on Formula World, Haas hits back at Racing Point's alleged hypocrisy. When Haas made its debut in Formula 1, the team did something incredible, which was to be a competitive midfield team right from the beginning. Many of the other teams had cried foul back then, as it was suspected that Haas had received unfair help from Ferrari. Force India, which would become Racing Point, was one of the teams that had been quite outspoken at the time. Racing Point now find themselves at the receiving end of a similar controversy after the team debuted a car very similar to Mercedes' championship-winning car from last year. As expected, Haas hasn't held back, and the team's principal Guenther Steiner has some choice words for Racing Point. Sometimes you have to think before you talk. I will say that one because maybe one day it's your turn and then you cannot go against it. As we all know, they complained quite heavily a few years ago, so now it is going full circle. It is up to them, I don't really care. He further elaborated by saying how this approach is pretty much the norm for customer teams, and Racing Point shouldn't have been so critical of it in the past. I would put it like this. They use a lot of Mercedes parts on their car, so why would they go and copy a Red Bull? It's the same with us. So I think they're just doing what we are doing, just trying to get the best out of it and use that model. Racing Point defended their 2020 challenger by saying pretty much what Steiner said. Racing Point's technical director Andrew Green explained by saying, "You aren't going to start looking at the slowest car on the grid. The inspiration is from the quickest car from last year." Racing Point is taking the logical approach. Racing Point has continued to defend its approach quite vehemently. Andrew Green further explained why their car is based on the Mercedes instead of any other team's car. "Since May last year, we're working in Mercedes' wind tunnel. That makes it more logical for us to follow their concept rather than Red Bull's. That would have been completely new territory for us. All the equipment and procedures in the Mercedes tunnel are made for this concept. Besides, our front and rear suspension and the transmission are straight from the 2019 Mercedes." Racing Point also found some support for this approach from AlphaTauri boss Franz Tost. There is a cooperation between Racing Point and Mercedes, with numerous parts being taken over. I can see that Racing Point has gone in the direction of Mercedes in terms of vehicle development and has logically arrived at similar solutions, but everything is within the rules. He too elaborated on how it was all pretty normal in F1. We have a stable set of regulations, so it's normal for racing teams to copy other teams' solutions. That's not new in Formula 1, that's an integral part of the Premier class. Gasly and Kvyat went to Red Bull too soon. Both AlphaTauri drivers have one thing in common. They both got promoted to the main team only to be relegated back to the then junior team in the Red Bull setup. Most F1 experts agree that it had little to do with their racecraft and more to do with the timing. The current team boss Franz Tost corroborated this by saying, "Pierre Gasly and Daniel Kvyat simply went to Red Bull too soon. This was not the intention." He further explained how it wasn't exactly a promotion, but something done as a knee-jerk reaction to the first choice drivers leaving for other teams. When Sebastian Vettel left for Ferrari, Kvyat had to take over, and when Daniel Ricciardo left for Renault, it forced Gasly into the second Red Bull seat. They would not have been promoted otherwise. Fast feed. Alfa Romeo's reserve driver Robert Kubica has conceded that he is finally back home. Ferrari has decided to focus a bit more on trying to learn the car as much as possible in these first days of testing, and then focus on performance a bit later on, according to its driver Charles Leclerc. Haas driver Kevin Magnussen felt good about the team's car at the first day of testing, but feels that it's always difficult to judge their competitiveness this early into the season. Renault's new signing Esteban Ocon compared Renault's simulator to Mercedes and concluded that his current team simulator is missing a few things, but it's not the end of the world for him or the team. He further added that the 2020 cars are fast enough to break all the lap records. Red Bull's Max Verstappen is hoping that the team has done enough to challenge for the championship. He also confirmed that the team has improved the car in the areas where they wanted to. Renault's Daniel Ricciardo was feeling great to be driving again and revealed that he felt quite comfortable in the car from the get-go. Williams' deputy team principal Claire Williams has divulged that the team wanted to make a real point by going out first on track for testing and letting everyone know that they are ready to go. Williams driver George Russell is finding their 2020 car to be very promising. And Mercedes driver Valtteri Bottas has revealed that balance-wise the team has some things to work on. Do you agree with Racing Point's approach? Be sure to vote in the poll and let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like this video, feel free to subscribe and check out my others for all the latest in the world of Formula 1.